Hey guys, Hop here. I've been hearing some buzz recently about the KAK Industry K-Spec bolt carrier groups. I've actually been using one for a while. Originally it was in the 16-inch rifle speed dissipator upper. I just built this 12.5 mid-length rifle speed baby dissipator upper and put that Caseback BCG into this one to continue testing it. This is a downward venting BCG. It has a couple of other features, but the downward venting is the thing that people have been talking about. Apparently, it will reduce the port pop, making a suppressed gun quieter to the shooter's ear. I think that was just a theory originally, but KAK Industry did pay an independent lab to test it for them, and they confirmed a reduction in decibel reading at the shooter's ear. So, the K-Spec bolt carrier group might be a really good choice of bolt carrier group for a suppressed gun, provided you have some other way to tune it. But if you don't have a way to tune your gun outside of the bolt carrier group, there's always the Bootleg BCG. Good old standby. Brassfax vouches for these, has a ton of rounds on them. I've used one a little bit off and on here and there, and I'm using one again on this build. This is a 12.3 Hansen carbine length. This has no real tuning going on other than in the bolt carrier group. So, kind of thought it'd be interesting to talk about what both of these bolt carrier groups can do for suppressed guns, kind of compare them. They do very, very different things, but they are both interesting choices for suppressed guns. Let's get into it. So, up first, the KAK Industry K-Spec BCG. This is supposed to be an all-around improved AR BCG. This is the downward venting version, so instead of having holes on the side that vent excess gas pressure, they're on the bottom. This thing also has some sand cuts on the bearing surfaces on the sides of the bolt carrier group. So if you really want to make knights mad, you can call this a KAK sand cutter. And technically, you're not wrong. Another addition KAK made to the Caseback BCG is the addition of dual ejectors, something which I think is probably not necessary on a 5.56 gun, probably a little more useful on a 308, something with a much larger, heavier case, but probably can't hurt, right? So the appeal of the Caseback BCG for a suppressed gun is those downward-facing gas vent holes. Usually when you shoot suppressed, you get a bunch of gas shooting backwards into the receiver. Some of it comes out the charging handle gap, goes into your eyes. A bunch of it builds up by the ejection port, and you get gassed out in pretty short order. Oh my gosh. In theory, the downward-facing vent holes should improve shooter comfort by reducing the gas-to-the-face effect. In my testing, I can't tell any difference at all. I feel like, just like any other DI gun, you still get those little squirts of gas to the eyeballs, unless you have a very nice gas-defeating charging handle, which keeps the direct squirt of gas from getting into your eye. Sorry for using some of this colorful language. But of course, as with any suppressed gun, a lot of the gas is coming out of the barrel. So even if it's well-tuned, even if you're deflecting the gas up by the charging handle, it'll still build up by the ejection port and you're still going to get gassed out. The bigger improvement, apparently, is that by having the vent holes facing downwards into the receiver instead of out the side, you actually get greatly reduced port pop. So port pop is increased noise from the ejection port when shooting suppressed, maybe because the bolt is unlocking a little bit too soon. If that's the case, you can mitigate that by tuning the gun with, buffer weights or gas tuning, but also maybe because of the gas venting out those gas relief holes on the side of the BCG, which is something that the Caseback BCG can mitigate. Not just in theory, but apparently according to these lab tests, it actually does substantially reduce the volume at the shooter's ear. This is the kind of data that's hard to come by unless you have advanced measuring equipment and you're in a lab setting, but just speaking subjectively, when I shot my 16-inch rifle speed dissipator build with the Caseback BCG and the Otter Creek Labs Polonium K, it's one of the nicest sounding guns I've ever shot suppressed. At least as far as, supersonic 5.56 goes, it was extremely quiet. It felt almost hearing comfortable to fire off a handful of rounds with no hearing protection. Not something that you should probably do, not something that I plan to do that often, just saying. A big part of that is probably just that the Polonium K is the quietest suppressor I've ever owned, and also on a 16-inch barrel, you're not really fighting uphill like you are with an SBR. So, the Caseback BCG seems like a really good choice for shooting suppressed, provided you already have some other way to tune the gun for suppressed shooting, because, of course, there's really nothing else going on with this bolt carrier group if you're not also tuning the gas at the gas block or adding additional buffer weight, fucking around with springs, even though AR springs are literally snake oil, then you're going to have a bad time because the gun will still be extremely gassy with any kind of traditional high back pressure suppressor. As of this recording, the Caseback BCGs are available in just a ridiculous combinatorial explosion of options, different types of coatings, different types of materials, and also with and without the downward ejecting holes. I think they also have it in a left-hand eject version. So quite a lot of options to comb through on KAK's website. However, the thing that they currently don't have is like a mil-spec, proper mil-spec style BCG, if that's the sort of thing that matters to you. This one has a 9310 bolt. They have a version that has a Carpenter 158 bolt, but it's not phosphate coated and chrome lined. They do have one that is phosphate coated and chrome lined, and it's got the 9310 bolt again. So currently, if you want to get yourself a nice mil-spec Caseback, as contradictory as that may be, you got to buy two and put them together yourself. Although KAK has said that they are planning to do a mil-spec, phosphate chrome lined Carpenter 158 version down the line. So maybe just wait for that one. But maybe you're looking for a bolt carrier group for shooting suppressed and you don't have any other way of tuning the gun, and buffer weights can only get you so far. So number 2 option is the Bootleg BCG. I've talked about this a little bit in the past. Brassfax has talked about it a lot more than I have. He's also got a ton of rounds on his bootlegs, plural. I think he's got 2 or 3 probably in different guns. I've used the Bootleg Adjustable BCG off and on. Currently it is in a Ballistic Advantage 12.3 Hansen upper. This is a very lightly gassed upper, as almost all Ballistic Advantage Hansen barrels are. So you really don't want to buffer it up too much because then it just won't run without the suppressor on it. This upper has a pinned, low profile, non-adjustable gas block, so I'm not doing anything to control gas at the muzzle. So if I want to be able to shoot this gun suppressed and unsuppressed and make it a little more comfortable, the Bootleg BCG works really well. These BCGs have a little adjustment key on the side that you can turn with a flathead screwdriver, and they have 4 settings from fully unsuppressed all the way to fully suppressed. I have never had a gun that was so gassy that I could use more than the first click without shutting it down completely. So this 12.3 Hansen is a very lightly gassed, or you might say under-gassed barrel. So with a standard, relatively lightweight buffer, carbine, or maybe H1 at the heaviest, and no suppressor, I can shoot with the Bootleg all the way open, and then adding a suppressor, even a high back pressure suppressor like a Polonium K, I turn it down 1 notch and it becomes extremely smooth shooting. But like with a rapidly tunable gas system such as the Rifle Speed, if I ever really needed to crank that gas back up for reliability in adverse conditions or weak ammunition, what have you, that's always accessible right there from the side of the gun. The Bootleg Adjustable BCG accomplishes its gas tuning magic by dumping excess gas out of the gas vent holes on the side of the BCG. So it's kind of the opposite of the KAK K-Spec BCG. I did some digging around the internet and I found an ARFCOM forum where somebody who apparently had the equipment to do this sort of a test tried the Bootleg BCG and said that there was a substantial increase in measured port pop with the suppressed setting. That certainly seems to check out. With the Rifle Speed system, we're tuning it up at the front, cutting the gas off before it has a chance to get back into the receiver. But with the Bootleg BCG, all that gas is still coming into the BCG. It's just venting out the side instead of all being used to propel the BCG to the rear. Now, speaking subjectively as a right-handed shooter, I've always found that a Bootleg BCG makes the gun more comfortable to shoot suppressed for me. I don't feel like I get that direct squirt or jet of gas into my eyeballs like I do with any traditional setup, including the KAK K-Spec BCG. The downside probably is more gas buildup around the ejection port and also a louder action sound, more noise from the port pop because more gas is venting out the side of the gun. If you think about the K-Spec venting gas downwards, it's almost like it's using the entire volume of the receiver set and maybe even the magazine as like an expansion chamber to allow that gas to, cool off and expand before the bolt has finished opening, and then you have to hear that loud noise. So the Caseback BCG probably does make a gun a little bit quieter at the shooter's ear, and the Bootleg BCG, when in a suppressed setting, probably does make the gun a little bit louder. Another fact that seems to bear these results out is that Pew Science has tested flow-through cans like the Flow 556K from Huxworks as having an extremely low port pop, so apparently it's one of the quietest at-ear suppressors they've ever tested because it's not blowing a ton of gas back into the action, creating noise back by the shooter's face. I am still very skeptical that the overall sound signature of the 556K is not still going to be a lot louder than a traditional can like the Polonium K, mostly because I think you're almost always within earshot of a reflective surface. So if there's a lot of noise coming out the end of the barrel, it's only a few reverberations away from hitting you in the tender eardrums anyway. But the measurement at the port is very interesting because it seems to kind of prove the point. It also suggests to me that if you have a flow-through can, then you don't need a Caseback BCG, and you certainly don't need a Bootleg. So depending on what else is going on with your build, like what type of suppressor you have, if you have adjustable gas system, depending on what kind of buffer weights or buffer system that you're using, you may find that the K-Spec or the Bootleg make your gun more pleasant to shoot suppressed. I think that the Bootleg has a lot of value because of its ability to quickly tune the gun with just one drop-in part. The rifle speed is a big, expensive addition to a gun. It can also introduce some compatibility problems with handguards, accessory mounting, stuff like that, which is why we did the rifle speed dissipator build in the first place. I think the Bootleg makes a lot of sense on this gun for the reasons that I already mentioned, because I do want to be able to take the can off and still shoot this thing. And actually, yes, the can does come off, and you can still shoot it. It looks like it's a little bit tucked and shrouded, but it's not. It's just an illusion. All right, guys, that's the show. Thank you for watching. I'm off camera, but, I'm still up here, so don't worry about it. Anyway, if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to support this show, you can do so via Subscribestar, link in the video description. If I have any good footage of my timeshare cat, Sako, then we will have already cut to it. See you guys next time.
Covered in pollen, bro.